Welcome to this episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show. I am your host, Mary Czarnecki, and today I'm thrilled to invite Katie Gray to our show here as our guest expert. If you don't know Katie, Katie is the founder and principal of Kinetic Marketing Communications. That's a women-owned marketing collective of top-tier senior-level strategists and creatives. And Katie and I are going to be having a little discussion today about one of the fundamental questions, which is who actually needs to be helping you in your marketing efforts, not just what should you be doing in your marketing efforts. So welcome, Katie. So happy to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Mary. Happy to be here.
Now, I know some of the folks listening may be very familiar with you, may know you actually personally, but for those who are meeting you for the first time, can you give us just a quick overview of Kinetic and who it is that you love working with?
As you said, Mary, Kinetic is a women-owned marketing collective, and what that means is we are similar to what you would consider a traditional agency, where we offer consulting, creative services, a realm of different services like agency, except our model is different than a traditional agency. It's actually created that way so that we can scale appropriately and plug in whatever discipline that is needed for the challenge. Marketing is composed of just a number of different disciplines. So we wanted to make sure that we served our clients appropriately. And we tailor our services pretty much to mid to enterprise level businesses.
Amazing. Now, I know, like you said, one of the things that you uniquely deliver on is putting the right person in the right role for your
Yeah.
client. And I think that brings us to the topic of the day, which is so often when it comes to conversations around marketing or marketing planning or strategy, the focus is on the what to do, right? Or the steps to take. And I think you and I both agree, we've talking in the green room before today, that there's another question that really should be asked, which is the who, right? When
Ooh,
we're thinking about that. So, what is one of the things that you're seeing right now? Companies make a mistake when it comes to not considering that question.
because they have a lot of mouths to feed, you've got a lot of overhead to support. Like I said, marketing is just a black hole of all of these specialties and subspecialties, like the medical field. A lot of people don't realize you've got cardiologists, neurologists, rheumatologists, endocrinologists. Marketing is the same way. You've got PR specialists, you've got earned social media specialists, people who know how to do it well paid. You've got programmatic media buyers, people who are better at buying on the traditional side, like print and linear. And then you've got content strategists, you've got copywriters, you've got subspecialists of copywriters, you've got subspecialists of PR folks. Not everybody does crisis communications. So the what I'm seeing is that you need to make sure when you're developing your strategy that you have got folks in place that are going to execute on that strategy. So if your strategy is going to require a lot of content, you probably are going to need somebody with excellent content strategy skills to make sure that it is being distributed in the appropriate place, that you're drafting it appropriately, the right writers, right? Not everybody's going to do a great social post who's writing the case study that you need. So you're going to need social strategists. You're going to need like more of a holistic content strategist. You're going to need a technical writer to help with some of those supporting things. If it's business to business, if it's business to consumer, it's an entirely different beast. So again, if you don't have the right people in place and you don't have these people who are seasoned and experienced in what they do in that particular discipline, it's like you don't have a PCP, your PCP doing heart surgery.
Right.
It's that analogy. So you've got to make sure that you've got people who are well trained, not interns, not junior level people, but people who are really good in their niche to perform the work. The work isn't going to do itself.
And it's interesting too, because I think it's like the talent resource is a kind of underconsidered resource.
Yes.
I know, like you, I've been part of plenty of annual marketing plan developments, business planning developments, quarterly reviews. And often people focus on the line items around, okay, advertising spend, or if it's a physical products business, cost of goods, all of that kind of thing. But the human element, I think, is something that people don't necessarily remember to ask that question about, okay, we may have a core team in-house, but
Yes.
are there certain specialty gaps that we
Yes.
need to bring in if we choose to take on certain initiatives? So when you're working with clients or when you're seeing teams struggle with this, are there certain areas of marketing more than others that you think get overlooked, or is it pretty much across the board?
It really is across the board. What I would say is, what you would need to look at is from a business strategy perspective, you need to have the folks in-house that, like your core people that are going to support the marketing strategy that aligns with the business goals, right? So I would have those people in place because you're always, like I said, you've got so many different disciplines of marketing, but you're going to have to keep those people busy
Yeah.
pretty much full time. And there's going to be these gaps to support. So whichever are like the main areas where the business can utilize the most support, whatever discipline, those are the people that probably need to be on the ground in the company. And then we can fill in the gaps, or agencies can fill in the gaps from there. But the difference between like our model and a traditional model is that a traditional model also has those mouths to feed. They also have to keep those people busy, and they're not going to have every specialty and subspecialty available to the company that they're serving. They also supplement through contractors when they need to, but they're always going to try to fill up their people first. So there's this hidden agenda with full service agencies or traditional agencies that we just don't have. So we have people who, like yourself, are career established independent contractors who work as part of this collective. And literally, if you ask me, oh, do you have this specialty? I will tell you if we do or we don't, because we're still curating our team. But for the most part, we have pretty much been able to cover about any base that I can think of to be able to fill gaps that are needed for in-house teams.
Nice. So I'm curious. So when you're thinking, so putting yourself in the role of the manager or the director or the leader in-house that's thinking about bringing someone in to fill some of those gaps, right? I've
Mhm.
identified, okay,
Yes.
friends are taking these initiatives. It needs a specialist. My people are covered, but they don't necessarily have a certain background or experience or expertise in this area. So we know we need this. What are some of the questions that they should be asking of the outsourced providers that they might be considering? Like, what are the questions that you wish people were asking?
So I definitely think one of the things and sometimes they do, but they don't go far enough. Like they want to meet the actual person on the team that's going to be performing the work, because a lot of times traditional agencies are about the sale or about the win and the get, and they have their A team forward for the pitch, right? And they're going to try to sell you that they can do this. What they really need to be asking is, when I said on the company side, in-house side, who is hiring to fill that gap, they need to see the CV. They need to see the LinkedIn page of the person that's performing the work. They need to see case examples, case studies, or examples of the work, not just of the agency, but of the human that they are employing the agency to perform the work.
And I think that's a great reminder too, because I mean that there's a reason there are those memes out there on social. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we have the president come in and do the pitch, and then it's a second
Yes.
intern doing the work.
Yes, so it varies case by, not all agencies operate the same way like we do, with where we can actually plug in fractional people into the team. But I think they're evolving there. They see the opportunity. Because the other thing, I know the reason why I started the business as well was because of the pandemic and just all the changes that happened after that, with remote working proving out that you could do it effectively, or at least those of us who have that self-discipline. And that's one of our core values, is that we work with people who have mutual respect for each other, are great collaborators, are empathetic, and have self-discipline to do the work, where you don't have to have the whip cracked and did you do your many hours. You're gonna, if you've got the assignment, you're gonna do the assignment in the time that you said you're gonna do the assignment. But since remote working has been proven out, and a lot of these veterans like myself and Megan, my partner, and others who used to work for consultancies or agencies have gone out on their own, we have been able to create a network all over the country. We're not confined by our zip codes anymore. And so that's really helped as well. Did I go off the topic?
No, no,
Did
I
I
think
answer the question?
honestly,
I was like, I'm not going around and around. I
no,
had a
and
thought and then I need to
actually
come back.
you brought me my brain at least to another thing I think which is worth talking about, which is if I'm a company looking to fill these specialist gaps, there's a really big talent pool out there of, like you said, veterans who
Yes.
spent their careers in-house, like you, like your business partner, like me. It's not that I left corporate because I didn't like corporate anymore. I had
Yeah.
other priorities, I had other things I wanted to accomplish, right? And so that employment model just wasn't working for me at a certain point in my life. But that leaves a bunch of people out there, like those that you work with and that you have in your collective, of highly skilled, highly talented people that just aren't interested in working in a corporate employment role, but still have the skills and talent and specialty areas that are needed in these roles. And so, from your perspective, what are you seeing out there in terms of the availability of talent?
Oh, yeah, it's abundant. The other thing I would point out too is they have the capacity to perform the work. Because we have such a deep bench, we have not just one senior marketer in this role or in this position, we have a bench of them in all of the different specialties. And so, what's great, the other problem that you can have too, again, with these agencies that have to feed the mouths and provide the benefits and have the overhead, is that they're usually overworked and underpaid. And a lot of them suffer burnout. They're just talk about that whip cracking, right? And if you're good at your job, the more gets piled up on you because your salary and you just get piled. And unlike those models, too, we're not created to where, oh, we want to build up the company into this big thing and then sell it. We want to put these wonderful, talented people to work. That's what we all want to work in the here and now and seize the day now and basically become successful and perform the work now versus looking at what we plan to do. That's not the objective. So it serves our clients better that we don't have a different objective in mind other than to serve them in the here and now and to put these wonderful people to work.
And I think you bring up something too around burnout, which is important, which is it's not just in the agency teams, but also these teams that maybe should be considering outsourcing some specialty roles more often
Yeah.
because there's a difference between stretching your people and challenging your people. I definitely look back on my career and I'm like, okay, those roles that were stretched for me or that did put me in a situation that maybe I wasn't the specialty in, that those were good experiences, they were growth experiences, but we have to acknowledge that there's a fine line for a lot of internal teams of stretch and overwhelm. So there's this opportunity to learn for the benefit of the team as well as the benefit of the initiative. Are you seeing teams underutilize that outsourced potential?
Yes, yes. Not as I do. I think the problem is that, yeah, I do, but I do feel like they have to learn the hard way. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
It usually is they've tried it with internal teams and they just weren't getting what they needed out of them, and then they end up having to outsource, and then other things happen. Either they leave because of burnout or
Yeah.
have to be replaced eventually.
Are there signals, like if you think about some of the clients that have brought you on that maybe did have to learn the hard way, were there any kind of signals or things like that those who might be watching or listening to us today could say, oh, okay, yeah, maybe if I watch out for these three things or these couple things, that might be a signal that I need to seek someone outside of our core team here.
Some of it is culture. I hate to say it, but some of it is culture. It depends on if someone's being micromanaged or if there's politics. It's not just always about the work. It can be overworked where you're working too much and people get burnt out, or it can just be politics that kind of force that hand too.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I know you mentioned before too, like when you're developing your plan itself, it's not just about developing the plan, the strategy, but the question of who's going to actually be the doer, right? Who's going to be the actual executor in this? So when you're thinking about the best approach for planning, then where does this who question or where should this who question really come in?
It comes in after the fact, at least from my perspective. You're always going to want to put together, I try to make the analogy of who is the strategist and what is their role, because then you've got that, and then you've got the people that are actually executing on the strategy.
Sure.
And the best analogy I can think of that makes sense is like the John Williams. I don't know if you know that is the composer and the conductor, and he does all the musical scores, and he used to be in the Boston Pops. But it's like He can read every note of music, right? He knows the musicians that he needs to assemble. Actually, he first thinks, okay, what instruments am I going to use to bring this whole sound together and this whole harmony? And then what musicians am I going to hire to play those instruments?
Yeah.
It's marketing is the same way. I'm going to compose the right score for Steven Spielberg, in this case, the client. I'm going to compose the right strategy for the client and then look and go, okay, what instruments am I going to need? And who do I need to play those instruments?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. No, I think I love that analogy too, because it really does take someone to be able to see the big picture. I need to hear the sound, then pull out, okay, what elements make up that sound, and then who
Mhm.
are the people that are going to bring that.
And just like the John Williams analogy, when he's developing Jaws, it's got to sound a certain way. Same thing when you're doing a marketing strategy or integrated marketing for a business. All right, what are you trying to achieve? All right, I know all the tools and the tactics in my toolbox that can work based on the budget, based on the timeline, which mix of that is going to give you the most
Yeah.
harmony, and then go, okay, who do you have in house that we can leverage, who's got expertise in these areas? Where are the gaps? And then you can collaborate with the client, and if they really want to use more of the in-house team, even though it might sacrifice some performance or whatever, you go from there. But that's always where we start. And you do need someone who is really more of a broad integrated marketing, I think, communication specialist, so that you really get a great objective plan versus someone that social media is my jam. So the whole plan for your marketing is going to be around that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you do need to have someone, I think, that's more agnostic and has a more holistic approach.
Yeah, we definitely talk a lot about that in my audience-centric workshop. It's more about what does your market actually need? How are they going to take in the information rather than who's the specialist? What's someone's pet project in their team?
And the other thing I would say too that we didn't really touch on, but it's not just about the mix of tactic. That's one thing. But the other thing too is just the positioning and the messaging aligning with the target. But again, it's about reaching the people at the right time with the right message. And so the messaging and the positioning is also really core to success. There's so many variables
Yeah.
that are at stake really for it to fail. But if you have, again, it's all driven by humans,
Yeah.
all of it. You can
Again,
use AI for some things like for shortcuts or for efficiency, but still humans have to touch it. And buying is 95% emotional, and that's a human person that's buying and not a machine.
yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said too, the message development is a specialty, right? I mean, that it's going to be very difficult to come up with high converting messaging if it's someone who's not experienced in developing that. If it's someone that's now wearing multiple hats, that this isn't necessarily their specialty area, and now we're just multitasking someone who's available rather than that's their specialty, that can also limit your success in that area.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing. I've got two more questions for you. Number one, more of a personal question, but I know I spoke to a lot of professionals, large companies, startups, different roles today. And so many of us, most of us, are working in fast moving environments. I know you're over delivering for your clients, right? You're pulling together these talented collective teams. One of the things that I'm always curious that I ask everyone is, how do you stay motivated? Like, how do you stay inspired to do what you do? Are there certain things that you listen to, things that you pull on, places where you love to go to refill your cup, so to speak, so that you can stay inspired and show up for your clients?
Yeah, you said it right then. First of all, I love what I do, so that makes a big difference,
Yeah.
right? If you really enjoy the work, and that's the reason why I started the business, so that I'm surrounded by like-minded people and we don't have any toxicity in the culture, and it is just a joy. I'm blessed every single day. So that makes a huge difference. And I almost think that's like the major difference because you work at different times of the day. That's the other thing I love about it. It's not like I have a commute where I have to have my hiney in a seat at 8 a.m. in the morning. Because I don't know if you've seen that thing on CBS Sunday Morning, but people are really only productive 4 to 6 hours in a
Yeah.
day max.
Yeah.
And so when you're forced to sit like you're be in an office for 9+ hours in a day like that, I don't really think people, and I know having experienced myself firsthand, you go to the water cooler and you visit and you're still in the office and It's not the same level of productivity. I feel like I am just more high functioning, more high performing in this type of situation. So I just don't get as burned out as often. And I'm lucky that I have a book club and I've got a very full social life that also keeps me balanced and family and all of that. So
Oh, that's
I don't
great.
know if that answered your question,
No, it
but
does. It does. And I think it's a valid point too, that people need to find the container, right? The container they work in that isn't going to drain them so that they can do their best work.
yeah, definitely. And I would just, everybody's different. What I would say is that if you're miserable, you need to find something that's going to bring you joy. And I know it's scary. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. I'd always served in leadership roles for other agencies, even where it was a partner in another agency. So I never really thought this would be me, but I'm one of those people that just follows the current in life. And I lost two friends to cancer within very close friends within a year of one another. And it just makes you have all this perspective that you didn't have before. And we are here for such a short amount of time. And you got to enjoy life while you're here because you don't know what's around the corner.
No, it's a really good reminder. All right, last question, which is I'm sure you've lit some light bulbs up for some people listening to you today. If someone wants to follow up, have a conversation with you, we are going to include a bunch of links here, but if you are going to direct people to one place to connect with you to learn more about what it is that you do and how they might be able to work with you, what is the best way to connect with you, Katie?
So definitely connect on LinkedIn. We've got our company page, which we're trying to grow, is Kinetic Marketing Communications, LLC. I think it's got a lot of dashes in it. And it's got some examples of work and things. So we'd love for you to come be a part of our community. And our website's kineticcoms.com. And you can reach us at any one of those places. And
Perfect.
Katie Gray, which is my LinkedIn page.
Fantastic. So wherever you're watching or listening to us, we'll have all of Katie and Kinetic's links in the show notes. So definitely reach out if we answered lots of questions for you today. That's my hope, but maybe we sparked some new ones so Katie can answer those for you. So thank you so much, Katie, for joining me as our expert guest today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Mary. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you guys all for joining us for this episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show. Looking forward to seeing you on a future episode. If you liked this, if you found this valuable, please share with a friend. We're always interested to hear from our community too. So leave a comment wherever you're joining us about your key takeaway or question from today's episode. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.